The planning conversation starts here on the Income Protection Podcast. Here's your host, Mike Cogdall and Grayson Owen.
All right, Mike, we're back. How goes it in Florida, my friend?
It's raining right now, my friend. Good to see you. It's been a couple of weeks. The weather's needed, so we don't have to go deep into weather. I say that, and then we do it every single 2 weeks or whenever we do a podcast. But it's really dry, so it's not going to hurt. I mean, I already saw like the crazy wildfires already in Oklahoma. And then you've got Truckee, California, which we had the pleasure of being in that part of the world last year during IDIS. Such a gorgeous place. And crazy snow. First none, then a ton. So the world, as it ever evolves. Climate change, Mother Nature, whatever it is. But I got to tell you, today I wake up and it's like kind of wicked outside this morning. I didn't expect it. Never know. Yeah. How about you? What's going on in your world?
Everything's good. It's feeling like summer here. I got shorts and the t-shirt on today. Flip-flops. Going to be a high of 81 and sunny in Savannah today. So no complaints. No complaints, man. Good for a start to the weekend.
Oh, I got to tell you a little sidebar. Not that anybody else is interested, but I just reconnected with a good friend of mine that moved to Savannah from Denver.
Okay.
So going to have to come your way. One, you're a good friend. Need to come and visit and go do some of that fun food that they have in Savannah, Georgia. Because if you've never visited Savannah, it's a very unique city. Pretty charming, pretty cool.
That sounds like fun, man. And if not before, we have a NABIP conference coming up at the beginning of May or end of April. So maybe that's a good time to stop on by.
I think that could possibly work. Any excuse to go down the road and get some good food is awesome. And besides, we only have 2 seasons here. We have hot and hotters. Whatever. I'll never get used to it. I have to admit that I think I'm more partial to the Colorado weather. People think I'm crazy, but I am. It's 4 seasons that are never extreme. That's my new description of Colorado. Weather is 4 seasons, but none of them are ever extreme. So I don't mind that. But you know what? Live and learn. It's all good.
There you
go.
Let's
talk about a little bit of income protection here this morning, my friend.
Let's get after it. So, Mike, as we, get ready to pontificate on several different topics, I think it's probably a good place to start that you were just sharing with me offline that you ran across a friend who needs some help with income protection planning. It was a pretty significant surprise to find that out, right?
It was a huge surprise, and I'll tell you the rest of the story now. So I've got a friend, lives in my neighborhood, moved here 8 years ago from Missouri. You don't need to know the entire history. Business owner, wildly successful. And when I say wildly successful, let's just say that he makes over $2 million a year. 45 years of age, 2 children, and a spouse. Happily married, probably works 90 hours a week. And finally asked me, which nobody ever does, what I do for a living. Because everybody thinks I'm retired and they don't know that I still work a lot. So I said, you know what? I just basically do risk protection planning and make sure people's lives don't get screwed up in my little part of the world. And he goes, well, what's that? And so we talked and I said, let's just have lunch. And this was 2 weeks ago. Let's just have lunch next week, which was this week. So on Wednesday, we went over to a little restaurant. Ordered a burger and talked about everything else, talked about what's going on with his business, this, that, and the next thing. But I said, let's get down to brass tacks. He's like, okay. And I said, so let me ask you a really hard question. What's the most important thing to you in the world? And he's like, what do you mean? I go, the most important thing. I said, bring up your phone. But it's on your phone right now. And he brings it up. And what is there? Picture of his 2 daughters and his wife is his screenshot. And I go, pretty much it, right? He goes, yeah. And I go, this is why we have to have this discussion. I go, you probably already have most of this taken care of, so it's really probably a review because he's 45 years old. He's lived here a long time, long enough, 10 years almost, 8 to 10 years. I'm not sure exactly which. And I said, so at over a couple $1 million a year, I said, so your risk protection plan, your income protection plan is current and up to date, right? He goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. I go, let's just call it what the industry says, disability insurance. He goes, I don't have any. And my wife's been harping to me about this. And I said, I know, this is what I do for a living. I ran some numbers for you, showed him actually $35,000 a month. He's like, wow, that might not do it. I said, well, there's another conversation we can have. And of course, that's a Lloyd's conversation, but let's just start at the beginning. And he goes, so tell me about this. And I said, I don't have to really tell you much about it other than the premiums are guaranteed. Meaning they'll never go up like you think about insurance. They just don't go up. That number for that 35 stays forever. As far as the policy goes, I own this stuff from age 27 to age 65. I think I know what you need. It's exactly what I owned for almost 35 years or however long it was. So I'll take care of it and give you the best income protection plan you can get for that money. And he's like, no problem, let's get it done. So next week we're going to do the app, take it, get it done. And he goes, you know what? You just made it easy. He's like every other person I know that works 100 hours a week. He goes, I'm all over the board. I'm ADHD. Thanks for not going into some kind of chilly details. If it was good enough for you, it's good enough for me, Mike. That was that. That was really hard. I've been talking for about 2 minutes. That's how long it took. You're going to love the next question. Can you do life insurance for me? I go, you're not going to tell me you don't have a life insurance policy at that amount of money. You live in, probably almost a $4 million. You don't have a life insurance policy? No, nobody's ever talked to me about it. I said, so you're telling me that nobody has ever talked to you in the 10 years you've lived in Florida about life insurance or income protection planning? He goes, no, not one person. So I did a quick search and looked up. There's 350,000 licensed agents in the state of Florida alone. And he goes to every single social event, every fundraiser, you know what, a man of the community, right? Because he's just out there. And he goes, no, you're the first guy that's ever brought this up to me. I go, you got to be kidding. So my point, Grayson, when I say it's the road less traveled, I think I'm living proof. I mean, I don't do retail sales, and it's done. It's done. And then, of course, I've got a life expert because I'm not. And I called him, and you know the guy in Baltimore, Maryland. And he's like, I'd be more than happy to help him. That's the second guy I've given my good friend in Baltimore, Maryland, too, in less than a month, just for life insurance, because I'm not going to try to explain all the life insurance moving parts, because he's got way more going on than I could probably deal with as far as what he needs to take care of. But even if he gets basic life, and I told him one more thing, and then I'll be done. One more thing I told him, I said, and the cool thing is my life insurance buddy, he helped me with this a few years ago, is I got whole life policies on my kids, 10 pay. And I go, it's about, I don't mind telling you, it's about $20,000 a year for the two kids, but I'm 7 years in, almost done. And the cash value currently is about $150,000 between the two of them. Because it's a whole life contract, the face amounts have gone from $1 million to about $1,150,000, $1,175,000. And in 36 months, they'll have insurance for the rest of their life. Simple stuff. Simple beats complicated every time. I know it took me 4 minutes to tell the story. It took me 5 minutes to explain it to him that way. And he said, I got to do that one too.
No, thank you for sharing that, Mike. I think that's a powerful story for everybody who's listening to this to hear, because if you're a producer, let this be a reminder that there's a lot of high earners out there that need help with income protection planning. And don't just assume because they're a high earner that they're probably okay. Because as Mike just shared, the who's who in the community still needed help and was never asked. And so that's the crazy part, is that, the opportunity literally limitless, as we say. Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Mike.
It's funny though, because he just asked me what I do. And I said, you know what? I always tell you all what to do on this podcast. And I just said, you know what? I basically do risk protection planning, specifically income protection planning is what I do. And I'm pretty sure your risk protection plan is current and up to date. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. We need to have lunch. That was it. That was the appointment scheduler.
Yep. No, that makes sense. I'm sure after that conversation, it probably rang some bells in his head that was like, wow, I'm glad that I went and had this, discussion with somebody today. Because, as you had said, his spouse had mentioned it to him before, but just kind of put it on the back burner. But if you have somebody, an expert that can go talk to an individual and just say, hey, I do this is why, and this is why you should consider doing it. It helps the person say, yeah, that makes total sense, and they'll actually move it forward. But if they don't have that nudge and they're thinking about it on their own, they're never going to get it done.
Correct. And regardless, and that's a very good point, Grayson, is if you do not want to do it yourself, find somebody, an expert that can and will do it for you. But if you didn't get anything else out of what I just said, I just gave you the opener.
Yep.
It's not a sales technique to say what's the most important thing to you in the world.
Yep.
That's a good question that we ask people. What's really important to you? You're going to get a couple of answers in life. You know what? To make my business grow, family is almost always going to be the one if you've got a family.
Yep.
So, with the population that we have in the United States and the number of married people that we have, it's a pretty safe question to ask, and you're getting an easy answer. And then you just do the next two sentences and you're on your way. Well, what I do for a living is or what I have one of my associates do. It doesn't matter if you're not going to do it. My point is this broker, which we've alluded to a bunch, needs to happen. It really does. All you have to do is open it up and say, do you mind if I have, Grayson Owen call you and talk about, your income protection plan? Because currently you don't have one. And I think it's very important for you and your family to at least have the opportunity to say yes. Nothing more than that, and you're good.
Yeah. And, for brokers, producers listening out there, if you're looking for a new lane to grow your insurance practice, consider becoming a broker, creating referral relationships, centers of influence, strategic partners that can refer you business to go do disability reviews. We've got the playbook for that if you can just find the relationship. So that's something we'd be happy to discuss with you if that would be helpful. Mike, going to pivot here, and I'd like to talk about, or I'd like to reference one of your famous sayings, a cogism, if you will, and bring up some unfortunate news that happened throughout the month of February, some fairly recent. But you have a cogism that a lot of producers like borrowing because it's very effective. And that is, when was the last time somebody died and then got sick? Could you share with us the meaning and purpose behind that, and why that's an important thing for a producer to perhaps use in explaining why income protection is important?
Well, keeping the Bible out of it, when was the last time somebody died and then got sick? Because I actually had somebody raise their hand once in a meeting, which totally threw me off. I got to throw a sidebar in here today. And the guy goes, Lazarus. And of course, I'm not the greatest Bible reader of all time, but I think there's something like that happened. But anyway, there's certain people that got swallowed by a whale and came back. But anyway, you get my point. And the point is, when was the last time somebody died and then got sick? It's very simple, and it's very, very, I think, poignant. It's very simple. And what it means is almost all of us live in some type of organized chaos for some reason. But our goal is to do things in order, more or less. Try to keep an orderly fashion to, how you run your life, how you do your day. But we just generally try to do things in order. And I think when you say, when was the last time somebody died and then got sick, it's one, kind of funny in a way. Two, it kind of makes you think for a second. And so we put things in the order in which they're most likely to happen. And that's all that really means. And that's all it really is. But what it does is it helps a normal, regular, everyday run-of-the-mill person understand what you're about to talk about, because it puts accident, illness front and center before life insurance. So income protection comes before life, because you know what? It very seldom happens that somebody just suddenly dies. It does happen. We know that. And sometimes that's an accident, but oftentimes it can be years of waiting. And, you talked about just now February being kind of interesting this month as far as what's going on in the world and things. And I think there's a couple things you'd like to share on another cogism. If you got the crystal ball, could you share it with me? Because what's been going on so far this month, which isn't even over yet.
Yeah, no. And thanks for sharing all those details on that very important cogism. And so, to get to some doom and gloom news, but I think it's important to tie this all together. The month of February has been pretty sad. There's been two actors and a musician that passed away at relatively young ages, Mike, and they all have a common theme amongst them. So the first one who just passed, or the most recent one that just passed away, is Eric Dane, who is well known for his role on Gray's Anatomy, passed away after being diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. He passed away at age 53. Additionally, Brad Arnold, lead singer of Three Doors Down, the rock band. I had the honor of seeing them live when I was in, I think it was freshman year of high school or 8th grade. It was way back in the day. They're great live act, great band. I followed them for many years. Brad Arnold actually passed away earlier in February. He had stage 4 metastatic clear cell renal cell carcinoma, so kidney cancer. I believe that was announced sometime around a year ago or last May. And then he's passed away that quickly from kidney cancer. And then the one that's been the most in the headlines this month is James Van Der Beek, who is known for iconic roles like being Dawson in Dawson's Creek and also being the quarterback in the movie Varsity Blues. And James Van Der Beek actually passed away from colon cancer, which I believe he was diagnosed maybe in 2024. I could be wrong, but has already passed away, unfortunately. And so the unique thing amongst all of them is that they all got sick, had a probably significant amount of time, maybe not even a year, but more than an elimination period on a policy, on a long-term disability policy, and then passed away. And so to your point, Mike, on that cogism that, nobody dies and then gets sick these are all examples of that, on how people were diagnosed with very, very bad and terminal illnesses, and that they were probably out of work for an extended period of time before they succumb to those diseases. And so these are examples that are in the headlines, not sharing these as a sales tactic, but as a reminder that these people that were only a handful of years older than me, that I grew up seeing on the TV screen regularly, have passed away. And so no one is immune to these things. And so it's important, as you said, Mike, earlier, making sure your risk protection package is current and up to date, because these disabilities, these injuries or illnesses, they could happen to anybody. We don't have the crystal ball.
No, we don't. It is sad. But the last one is the most interesting. Why don't you elaborate a little bit more on? And again, I'm not here to poo-poo GoFundMe, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I've always said that is probably not the way you really want to make sure that your family's taken care of. Think that's fair?
Yeah. No, I do think that's fair. And again, we're not knocking GoFundMe at all. But in a lot of the news headlines, there are links to GoFundMe for James Vanderbeek's family because of all the medical expenses that occurred during that time period. So I think there's two things to highlight there. One is, should we have better access to affordable health care in the United States than we do? The answer to that is yes. Can we solve that today? I think there's so many moving parts there. There's a lot of good people trying to figure that out right now, but it's not solved yet. And in addition to that, whatever creates that health event that causes all the medical and financial strain multiplies many, many, many times when there's also not earned income coming in the door. If the healthcare is not affordable, you're going to have extra bills coming in the door at the same time that you're not working. So you have that freight train of responsibility. All the monthly bills just keep piling up, plus more because of the medical expenses. And if there's no earned income during that time period, it can be catastrophic financially. And so putting that example aside, GoFundMe in general should not be the plan. Some people do need it. There's no way around it, right? So it is an appropriate tool in some situations. But if it could be avoided, wouldn't you want to do that? Wouldn't you rather pay a premium while you're healthy and make sure that you have dollars coming in the door to make sure everybody that you're supporting is going to be okay? Because if you ask me, I'd rather pay the premiums all day than to have a GoFundMe link. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Exact same. GoFundMe, I contribute to GoFundMe's no different than they were bake sales when I was a kid, when, dad fell off a ladder. All kinds of things happen in life, and I get that. So this is not to say that giving is the wrong thing to do. I actually think it's phenomenal and great that we can do it. I mean, we literally, GoFundMe literally is a good thing. It went from the bake sale world to technology and reaches a lot more people and helps way more than it hurts. We both know that. But at the end of the day, you just made a very, very valid point. That should not be part of your risk protection plan. And one more thing along those lines is, you said the bills pile up. What most people forget, unless you're an entrepreneur and you're running your own business, you're going to pay for your health premiums. You're paying. If you have health insurance, you're paying. But if an employer-sponsored plan is being done, you fall off that plan because you're no longer employed there. The other last thing I would say is, people talk about their most valuable asset as oftentimes they'll say their house. You know what? You can ask 99 out of 100 on walking the streets, and they'll say, well, you know what, my house just blew up from COVID till now, and it's worth I got $800,000 of equity in my house now. It's the most valuable thing that I have. And if it's not paid for, here's another issue. Banks and credit unions are not concerned about what your health issue is. They just want the monthly payment. And, we have had this conversation many a times, but you have a family that's a young man with 6 children who everybody in the United States is well aware of the person, because he's a personality, television personality. That just shouldn't happen. It just doesn't need to happen, I guess I should say. Yep. Better put, it just shouldn't be that way.
Yep.
It's sad. It's really sad. But that's why risk protection planning just becomes so important. Yep. I can't stress it enough, Grayson. It just becomes so important, because you've only got so much time on a home before someone says, we're foreclosing. We're sorry. We really feel bad. But it's almost like that term, business is business. You hate to be that guy, but that's what happens in the reality of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine, due to him being who he was and a great man of character by all the tributes I've seen, hopefully they're able to obtain the funding that they need. And our prayers go out to all 3 of their families. All right, Mike. So before we wrap it up today, let's close with giving a little commercial out to IDIS, the International DI Society. We've got some monthly study groups that are going on throughout most of the year. So I just wanted to remind our listeners, if you're not an IDIS member, go to the International DI Society website, consider joining. And one of the cool things is that they do monthly study groups. And I'm actually now helping out on the committee for the programming under our friend Mike Sir. And so we've got some cool programs coming up. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then also pencil in October, we have the annual conference for International DI Society in Atlanta. So it's in driving distance for both of us. So just wanted to give a little commercial for IDIS. Any thoughts, Mike?
No, the International Disability Insurance Society. And the reason it's international is when we first started this a long time ago, we had like a Canadian who was a friend of mine from Toronto. So it became international, which I always found kind of humorous. He was a very passionate DI guy that did a phenomenal job as well in wholesaling disability insurance in Canada. But my point there is, even if you're not a person that just lives and breathes for disability insurance, check out a couple of these seminars, webinars. You can learn a couple of things. They're not long in nature. They're always less than an hour. And can be pretty interesting, to surround yourself with people that talk nothing but disability insurance. Hopefully just maybe a little bit can rub off on occasion. You just never know. I mean, we're all here to constantly learn and grow.
Yep.
So if you're not aware of it, don't say, well, that's not for me, I don't do it. Give it a shot. Can't hurt.
All right, man. Good conversation today, and look forward to the next one.
All right. Hey, enjoy the weekend.
And remember, financial planning starts with a risk protection package first.
And your clients are counting on you. See you on the show next time.
All right, my friend, be well.